And how have we got a situation where there are now more people in work? It's harder to hire talent than it's ever been. People are working longer hours than they've ever worked, but our productivity has essentially bottomed out. And that's because
Hi there, all of you amazing souls. Welcome back to another exhilarating episode of Monday Talks, where we bring not just interviews, but great minds with their even greater stories. I am Daniel Tokal, your host, and today we have a true luminary among us. Please put your hands together for the incredible Bobbi Hartshorne. Good morning,
hello.
Bobbi.
It's so nice to be a luminary. I've never been called that before. Thank you.
You are, and we will see that. But before we dive into this treasure trove of wisdom, here's a little something from the heart. You know, every subscription, every like, every share means the world to us. It's not just about numbers, it's about the incredible community we're building together. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share with us your feedback, or even share this video with your friends. It's more than just support, it's a journey we're taking together to spread this great mind and even greater story. All righty, so Bobbi, let's start with you introducing yourself to the world. Who is Bobbi?
Sure. Hi, I'm Bobbi. I'm British, as I'm sure you can probably tell from the accent. I currently live in the UAE, where I've been residing for just over 11 years. And I am a workplace wellbeing researcher, strategist, thought leader, enthusiast. And I run a couple of businesses. One is a small independent consultancy offering workplace wellbeing and leadership and management consultancy. And the other one is a bit bigger, which is Wellwise. And Wellwise is a research, diagnostic strategy and guidance platform for workplace wellbeing.
Amazing. Okay, actually, your journey from being a global head of student well-being to founder of Wellwise is truly inspiring. Do you have a story to share that made that moment for you to shift to focus on workplace well-being?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you said, I previously used to work in the university space, higher education. I was working for a company called Global Student Accommodation Group. Does what it says on the tin. They build and operate student residences around the world. And I was the global head of student wellbeing for that organization. And I did that from between 2005 until 2020. And I'm sure as soon as I say 2020, people pick up on, what was happening then? And the COVID pandemic was such a pivotal turning point in my career, because I'd spent 5 years really working with students and young people and their well-being and sort of really trying to understand that and help young people to thrive in universities. But as the pandemic struck and had a really profound effect on the business world, which obviously we felt within our business, but observed around the world, it became very obvious to me that we were going to face a workplace wellbeing crisis that we were already. I just got really into this topic. It was increasingly being talked about, and I started to see a lot of similarities between the work that I'd been doing in the student space and developing strategies and trying to understand, how people can help people to thrive. And I thought, hang on, a lot of this is going to be really powerful and needed in the workplace. And so after much deliberation and discussion with my organization, I decided to step down from that role and basically dived headfirst into the world of workplace well-being. I spent about a year really studying this space, trying to understand where we were, what had been sort of the historic trends that we'd seen in this space, and how was the health and the well-being of the general working population now. And unfortunately, whilst I discovered that there was a huge amount of effort, a lot of goodwill, quite a lot of investment, and a lot of sort of maturing understanding in this space, actually, all the indicators tell us that the health and well-being of the working population is getting worse. So something wasn't adding up. And this really fascinated me. I was like, how on earth have we got to a place where we know more about this, we're doing more about it, we're investing more, but we're not actually generating the results that we need. And so I really, really got into that topic and studied it, wrote a white paper about it, wrote an ebook about it, and then started Wellwise. And Wellwise has really been designed to take all of that best practice and that knowledge that we've got and turn it into a really practical and useful tool for businesses to really understand how well-being is impacting their employees and ultimately the success of their business, and then help them to develop strategies to overcome the risks and take advantage of the opportunities that our diagnostics process identifies. And also it's built on multiple layers. So we allow insights into not just the organizational level, but also the team and department level and the individual level, because workplace well-being and building a workplace culture requires everybody to play their role, basically, to be part of the community, a thriving community. And so it's really important that we help individuals, leaders, managers, and organization heads to do that. So yeah, so that's what we do. And yeah, it's been quite the journey, going from the comforts of a big organization, salary at the end of every month, through to being, self-serving and building this.
You're doing your own well-being now. You're handling your own
yeah, exactly. And that's so funny you say that, because my well-being has changed so much. I loved what I did in the student world. I absolutely loved it. I was traveling around the world. I had a great team. I had enthusiastic support. But you're ultimately still working for somebody else. You're still answerable to somebody else. You're still in a system of rules and regulation of that organization. And that is a very different stress to the stress of running your own business, where you now have to decide what those rules are, what type of leader do you want to be, all and that sort of stuff. So yeah, so it's been a really interesting journey, but I would say that overall my well-being's better now than it was when I was working in business, full time. So yeah.
I was thinking this concept of workplace well-being, it's a new significant let's say term that has the attention recently. So everybody is focusing on mental health and individuals, but today you're talking about the well-being of the whole corporate and including the individuals, right? So it's a bigger umbrella.
Yes. Yeah,
it's
the relationship between an individual's well-being as an employee, and then how that then impacts the health and well-being of an organization, and how that sort of community of people come together to create thriving, successful businesses that also create thriving, successful human beings.
What's your starting point? It's the synergy to make that, to build up that community. But what's your starting point? You start by individuals, or you're just like looking at it from a holistic perspective?
Yeah. Definitely. I think one of the big mistakes we've been making in this space is looking at it individually. I actually really like the analogy of beehive colonies, Daniel, because beehive colonies are so interesting to look at when you think about that individual versus organizational perspective. Each individual bee has its role, has a responsibility to itself and to the others in the community or the colony. And then the sum of those thriving individuals is a successful colony. But the conditions within inside the colony have to enable that to happen. So for instance, in bee colonies, you have cleaner bees. I think of these guys like HR. So they are responsible for cleaning the bees and cleaning the hive. right? Making sure that the individuals and the environment that we're operating in are happy, healthy, highly productive, successful, the right skills, the right people in the right place, or the right bees in the right place. And so it really is both. You can't have one without the other. And historically, this is where we've been going wrong. We've been really focusing on trying to persuade employees and nudge them to better look after their well-being, but we haven't really been doing a very good job of looking at, well, what does the role of the organization play in that, and how does an organization either help or hinder an individual from reaching their well-being goals and achieving their full potential as an employee. And so that's really what we're at Wellwise fascinated by, and really trying to help organizations to understand that we can't just be looking at the individual, that we have to look at the collective. And I use the phrase, thriving is a team sport. You can't thrive on your own. It has to be part of a bigger thing. So that's what we work with.
I love the idea of beehives and how you connect that to the world. Amazing. Okay, let's talk about challenges. Okay, now you're by your own, and this thing of well-being, it's a big subject. How you can take it over by yourself and just like move ahead, move forward. What was the main challenges so far, and how Wellwise is addressing these challenges?
So, yeah, great question. It is a huge topic, because it's a huge topic for a number of reasons, Daniel. It's a big topic because it's a complex topic. As much as we would like to believe that humans are nice, simple creatures that behave rationally and follow order, they don't. They are not rational. They're emotional. They are instinctive. We are, at the end of the day, animals. And sometimes I think we forget that. So that's a challenge, is getting people who have the position and the power and the influence to actually understand that, and to take the necessary time or make the necessary investments to make that a strategic driver of their business. That's not necessarily particularly easy to do. It's multifaceted. It requires some deep diving and some unraveling of, maybe, I think of it like a ball of string. We have to find the end and keep pulling, and finally it comes loose. And some organizations, in the busyness of just running their business, have lost touch with that humanity, with that piece around, well, if your people are languishing, fundamentally your business is going to be underperforming against what it could be achieving. And so I think that's a real habit that we've got into, in that we've kind of forgotten the humanness within our businesses, and that has now created really big problems for businesses. It's created low productivity, productivity is stalled and it's going south. In fact, I was reading a statistic the other day that productivity in 2022 amongst OECD countries is as low as it was in 1947. Well, in 1947, we were 2 years past the Second World War, and the reason productivity was so low was because people had been killed in battle. So how have we got to a position in 2022 when we have all the technology, we are not engaged in a world war, although appreciate there are wars going on around the world, but most people are not engaged in that. And how have we got a situation where there are now more people in work? It's harder to hire talent than it's ever been. People are working longer hours than they've ever worked, but our productivity has essentially bottomed out. And that's because we have forgotten the humanness in our businesses. And so this is really an education shift. And the challenge that we face as a business is, how do we help organizations to switch to be human-centric, to be thriving businesses because their people are thriving. So that's a challenge. But within businesses, we've got, people come to us for a whole host of reasons. Very often it's that they've seen this new thing called well-being and they're told, oh, we better get on that bus, we better follow that trend and see what that's all about. Yeah, and they don't really know what they're talking about. They just know that they have to have it, and they don't really understand what that means. And so we have to go in and sort of help them do that. But some of them are starting to get it a bit deeper. They're starting to connect the dots between productivity issues, absenteeism rates, the Great Resignation, issues around culture, burnout, etc. They are starting to connect those dots, and they're coming in and going, we have realized we have reached a point where the way we're operating is not humanly sustainable, and so we need to change in order to survive in the long term. Yeah, and those people are awesome to work with.
Let's move into different segment of people. Gen Z.
Yeah.
Gen Z are now more. We see more of them in the workforce, and they bring new dynamics.
Yeah.
How do you envision bridging between their expectation and what the corporates are offering?
Yeah,
right now.
This is such an interesting topic. I am by default a massive fan of Gen Z because I worked in the student space, right? So my work with those young people, they are now entering the workforce, and so I really understand Gen Z, and I really appreciate who they are and what they want to do and what they want to achieve. This is a generation that has been brought up to be told to speak up, whether that's through Black Lives Matter, Me Too, the Arab Spring, it doesn't matter. Somewhere around the world, these young people have been told you have to speak up, you have to challenge the environmental crisis, the fairness crisis, the justice crisis, all of that. And so they've learned to do that, and they're really good at it. But they're walking then into maybe businesses that are not ready for that. They're not ready for that challenge. They're not ready for that openness and that directness with which Gen Z are coming at it. But they also are a generation that really value their well-being. They are the children of a burnt out generation. The boomer generation is burning out. We know 50 to 60% of leaders are at risk of burnout or have some symptoms of burnout, and they're looking at their parents and their uncles and their aunts and their friends' parents, and they're going, I don't want that. Why do we have to have that? And the sort of status quo of the way that we kind of work really, really hard until we're about 55, 60, and then we retire, they're thinking that's no life. I want to have a life where I can have an enjoyable and thriving career, but I also want to live. I want to enjoy my life. Say again.
We expect surprises, transformation when they are on board.
Exactly, and they are pushing that, and they're asking the difficult questions, and they're pushing the boundaries, and they're questioning the rules and regulations of business, and they're asking, why is it like this? This doesn't really fit in the modern world anymore. And they're also, Daniel, they're on a bit of a timeline because they know that business currently is threatening the climate, that it is threatening well-being, that it is threatening social justice sometimes, and they need to get on top of that quickly. They need to be ready to take over as leaders of these businesses quicker than maybe my generation did or generations before, because the clock is ticking for them. So they don't have time to wait, and so they're really pushing hard, and that's, for me, that's super exciting. And the job of current leaders is to say, okay, these guys are on a bit of a mission, and that mission is a well-intentioned one, but we need to find a way to help them bridge that gap between where we are today in business and where we need to be tomorrow. And we need to embrace them and find a way to channel that energy so that not only can they be part of solving some of the world's greatest problems, but they can also be part of making our businesses fit for tomorrow and adapt to the world that we now operate in. And I think that's a really big challenge for leaders who are struggling to engage with these people and understand them. But also for those that are,
before
it's
we go,
awesome.
it's really running fast. The time is going really, really quick. What do you say to those leaders who are keen to make it very healthy environment? Or they are keen to make the culture of well-being well communicated. What do you say to them? I mean, uh, what advice would you give to those leaders?
Yeah, it's I mean, great. If you're thinking that way, if you're thinking as a business leader, I want to run a business where one of the missions and outcomes of that business is not only profit, but it's healthy, happy employees, then wonderful. Because what many people maybe don't understand until it's pointed out to them is that a low well-being workforce, a languishing workforce, has a huge downstream impact on economies, on healthcare systems, on societies. You know, we start to create, we see relationship breakdowns and societal breakdowns and things like this. So there's a massive downstream cost to this. So if you're a leader who's thinking, I want to create a thriving business full of thriving people, you're also maybe not realizing it, but you're also potentially going to play a hugely important role in strengthening the economy and the community, broader community and society around you. And so kudos to you. And what I say to those people is, that's your purpose, right? That we talk a lot these days about purpose, about meaning, and about sort of a lot of leaders getting to sort of 10 years into their leadership career and going, what is this all for? Well, that's what it's all for. It's all for not only being a leader of your individual business, but being a leader in society, being a leader in communities, seeing that business can have a challenging and detrimental impact downstream, and saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that leader. I don't want to be part of that story. I want to be a story of hope and health and thriving and abundance. And that's really exciting for me. So yeah, frankly, if there are people listening to this going, yes, that's me, I'm one of those leaders, then reach out, because I'll basically have any chat with anybody who's on that page. But this is really, Daniel, a bigger topic than even just employee well-being and workplace well-being.
Oh, so what about the future of the well-being? How do you envision that? What's the future of workplace well-being?
Well-being. We have two choices. We're sort of sitting on a precipice at this point. For me, I think we've reached the apex. We've reached the point of we've exceeded human capacity in terms of the way business currently operates. So we're now on the downward curve of productivity, the downward curve of health, the downward curve of well-being. And if we choose to carry on using our current ways of working, our current methodologies, some of which were developed in the 1800s in the Industrial Revolution, right? So they're really outdated. We still see that sort of thing really dominate and have a really negative impact and jar significantly more now, but jarring with the outside world, the world beyond the walls of a business. So we can carry on doing that, but we're fundamentally fighting against our own success and 26% of the population now being Gen Z, who are saying we don't want that anymore. We want better. We want more thriving. So choosing to go down that route and sticking is option one. And I really hope we don't do that, because that's going to be bad news, really bad news for a lot of businesses, a lot of employees, and the downstream costs that I talked about. Or we can choose to say, okay, within the way the business now has to operate, within the confines of the challenges that we face from external, it is up to us to make our businesses as strong, as resilient, as agile, as flexible, as robust as they possibly can be, because the next 20 years is going to be very tumultuous outside of business, and that's going to have an impact on business. And so we have to say, as leaders, we're gonna step up and see our role as business leaders beyond just making profit, as I said earlier, and actually being part of business, being part of the solution of some of our challenges, business being part of the thriving. So if they choose that route, then what it looks like is saying, as a business, we need to build well-being into our mission and vision. We need to build well-being into our culture to make it the heart of our culture. And we need to be really, really intentional about unlocking and identifying first, and then unlocking the patterns of behaviors, the choices that we make, the way we make decisions, and say we're going to put a well-being framework in place around those things so that we can always have well-being as a consideration for everything that we do in business. And that is, we do now have a few handful of businesses that do this. And they do it really, really well, but they are few and far between. But that is possible. It's absolutely an option, and it's absolutely where we want Wellwise to help people get to.
Okay, we're running out of time. So one thing last before we conclude. You have 2 minutes. 2 minutes. You have the mic. Out of my questions, what you would like to address to the audience?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yikes. Okay. So I think look, in summary, we have to understand that if we don't get this right, even if all you care about is business, your business's success, you're less aware or interested in what's happening beyond the walls of business. We are currently in a downward spiral of well-being. Languishing well-being is driving challenges in business that are making it harder and harder to do business, which then drives down well-being further, and that spiral just keeps going down, 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 down. So my challenge to leaders out there is to say, first of all, you need to recognize that is what's happening, and secondly, to say, I don't want to be part of that. I want to turn that table. I want to turn that spiral around. I want to make that an upward spiral of a success story, and of thriving, and of winning in business, and of outperforming my competition. And that option is available to you right now with our support, and with support of other professionals who've made this their career, to tell you and to teach you how to change that spiral, to move upwards towards positivity rather than downwards towards, well, ultimate demise. Daniel, that's where we're going. So yeah, that would be my final say.
Amazing, really amazing. So thank you so much, Bobbi, for joining us today first, and really shedding a light on crucial aspects of workplace well-being and its impact on both individuals and organizations. Your passion really and that expertise are truly inspiring.
Thank you so much.
So for you, our viewers, remember to follow, like, and subscribe to Monday Talks for more insightful conversation like this one. Until next time, stay empowered and take care. Bye, Bobbi.
Ciao.